Thanks for tuning in to SpaceX Daily, episode 29. It's July 11th, 2026, and I'm Patrick in Vancouver. Plenty moving across Starship, Falcon, and Starlink today. Booster 20's record duration static fire moves Starship Flight 13 to a July 15 target and tests the thermal margins needed for rapid booster reuse. Booster 20 completed a record duration static fire of all 33 Raptor engines, clearing the vehicle for the next integrated flight test. SpaceX now lists July 15 as the target date for Flight 13, which will attempt the first full booster catch attempt with the updated pin design. The test also exercised the new flame trench and water deluge system at Pad 2. Engineers will review engine performance data and heat shield telemetry before the FAA issues the final launch license. Next milestone watchers are tracking is the first hot fire of Ship 39 on the orbital refueling test article. This static fire result directly advances the open question of full rapid reuse cadence by confirming longer engine run capability on the booster. The same test also proved the supporting ground systems. The deluge system at Pad 2 was run at 650,000 gallons per minute to confirm it can suppress the acoustic and thermal loads from a full 33 engine ignition. High-speed imagery showed the water curtain fully enveloping the trench and tower base. The test validates the design change from the earlier single pad configuration. Engineers will compare acoustic sensor readings against predictions before certifying the pad for Flight 13. Launch infrastructure readiness at Starbase continues to be tracked as a pacing item for higher flight rates, and today's full flow result directly addresses the open question of pad turnaround time between successive Starship missions. The physics behind that water flow is worth a closer look. From an engineering standpoint, the 650,000 gallon per minute water deluge test at Pad 2 addresses a fundamental acoustic and thermal problem where the energy released by 33 Raptor engines at ignition must be absorbed or redirected before it reflects back into the vehicle or erodes the launch mount. Raw water flow rate is the simplest lever because each additional gallon per minute increases the mass of liquid that can be vaporized, carrying heat away as latent heat of vaporization rather than allowing it to couple into steel or concrete. The idiot index here is the ratio of finished deluge system cost to the cost of the water and pumps alone. And the gap exists because the nozzles, valves, and trench geometry must survive repeated thermal shock and debris impact while maintaining precise spray patterns. By validating the full flow curtain, SpaceX collapses the uncertainty around pad turnaround time, moving the program one step closer to the rapid reuse cadence required for orbital refueling flights. The same physics that protects the tower also sets the minimum water volume needed for a Florida pad, where salt air corrosion adds another constraint on material choices. High-speed camera data from the test will be compared against computational fluid dynamics models that predict droplet breakup and steam generation rates inside the flame trench. Those models in turn determine how much margin remains if a future booster returns with a higher propellant load or a slightly different engine ignition sequence. The deluge design therefore functions as both a protective system and a data collection instrument that feeds directly into the next iteration of pad hardware. SpaceX filed with the FCC to expand the constellation to 100,000 Gen 3 satellites, citing the need for higher laser link density and direct-to-cell capacity. The application requests new orbital shells and updated spectrum rights. Regulators will evaluate interference and debris mitigation plans before any decision. The filing also references increased backhaul demand from future AI satellite payloads. Starlink constellation growth continues to be the dominant driver of revenue, and this filing directly informs the open questions of subscriber growth, direct-to-decell ramp, and profitability at scale. Booster B1071 flew its 35th mission, deploying 24 Starlink satellites from Vandenberg and extending the fleet's reuse record. The first stage landing on the drone ship occurred 8 minutes 20 seconds after liftoff, with all engines performing within expected parameters. This flight brings the booster within one mission of the previous record holder. SpaceX continues to track cumulative engine starts and grid fin cycles to set life limits. Falcon 9 reuse operations remain at record cadence, and B-1071's continued flights keep pressure on the open question of annual launch rate ceiling and individual booster life limits. A Falcon 9 launch from Vandenberg is scheduled for 8 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time and will be visible across parts of Arizona as a bright ascending streak. Observers are advised to look northwest shortly after sunset. The mission carries 24 Starlink satellites into a sun-synchronous orbit. Falcon 9 cadence from the West Coast continues to support the broader launch rate goals, and tonight's flight adds another data point on how frequently the Vandenberg site can cycle vehicles. Ground crews at Starbase are installing additional ground support equipment ahead of the July 15 target. The company continues site work at Cape Canaveral's Launch Complex 37 to support future Starship flights from Florida. Orbital refueling hardware remains in the critical path for the next demonstration flight. Starship infrastructure development now spans both Texas and Florida sites, and progress at LC-37 directly addresses the open question of how quickly the program can move from single-pad to multi-site operations. The V3 booster configuration incorporates revised tank domes and a lighter interstage that reduces dry mass by several tons. Post-static fire inspections will focus on weld integrity and engine bay insulation performance. Data from this test will set the baseline for the first tower catch attempt. The lighter structural changes on V3 continue the iterative path toward the mass targets required for full booster recovery and reuse on every flight. SpaceX released new space-to-sea footage showing upgraded buoy and drone coverage for capturing Starship re-entry imagery, including 3D heat shield modeling. The footage highlights how recovery assets have evolved from early makeshift platforms to integrated camera arrays that can reconstruct tile performance after atmospheric entry. Observers on the SpaceX subreddit are discussing the newly posted official video titled Critical Path that details recent Starship manufacturing changes. The video walks through tooling updates inside the production building and how those changes affect ship-to-ship refueling hardware timelines. One thing worth watching is that Chinese state media released video of a state-owned company's first successful recovery of a reusable rocket booster on an offshore platform. The landing used a different geometry than SpaceX's drone ship approach and avoided any tower catch hardware. Analysts note the demonstration shortens the timeline for China to field an operational reusable medium-lift vehicle. Resolution depends on whether follow-on flights achieve rapid turnaround and payload-to-orbit performance comparable to Falcon 9. On the AI front, Grok 4.5 launched with budget-tier pricing and direct integration into the Cursor code editor, expanding developer access to the model. The release includes updated inference optimizations that lower per-token cost for routine coding tasks. Cursor is separately developing Sand, a general-purpose AI agent intended to compete with ChatGPT and Claude in workplace tasks. The agent focuses on multi-step code refactoring and repository-scale edits that mirror workflows already used inside xAI and SpaceX engineering teams. These releases route new Grok capability directly to the developer tools used by SpaceX and xAI engineering teams. And a quick market note, SPCX closes at $145.30, down 4.6%. Before we go, Starship's next data point arrives on the 15th. That's your SpaceX news for today. SPCX is trading at $145.30, down 4.6%. If the show saves you time, a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify genuinely helps new listeners find it. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow. And before you go, this show is part of the NARA Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets, each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. OmniView, a balanced daily world news briefing that takes every side seriously. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. Following the long arcs, Story trackers on narrownetwork.com follow major programs across episodes: Tesla, SpaceX, AI, space science, and more. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.